"Are you doing okay, Allie?" I asked. She had pulled out a stuffed animal she found earlier and was holding it tight. It was a little tan and black kitten. She had always wanted a cat, but I was allergic. Something I've always felt bad about. "I'm a little tired, but I can't wait to get to my school. I hope some of my friends are there. And my teacher," she said. "I hope so too." I handed her a bottle of water. She took a big drink and gave it back to me. We had been sitting on the floor for a while, trying to figure out our next move. Mark got up and walked into the living room. A couple minutes later, he returned and said, "I think we should leave. The animals are still out there and there's more people now. We could go straight out the back and cut out towards the library when the path looks clear." I didn't feel very safe in the open house, so I was in. "Works for me," I said. "Anyone think otherwise?" The others shook their heads no, so we all went over to the back door. The backyard looked clear. After, we went outside and walked to the house behind this one, and then went left towards the library and the road to the school. We continued through the backyards and soon the back of the library was in view. All the noises we had made with the gunshots turned out to be good, as we didn't come across anyone on our walk. Trish led us through the tall grass and into the library parking lot. Wood boards covered up the windows back here. "Maybe there are survivors in here," Mrs. Wilson said, sounding hopeful. "Let's go around the building first to see if it looks safe and if there's a good way in," said Jessica. There were more boards on the windows along the side of the library. When we got to the front, we saw that something had busted through the bricks on the wall. Broken glass, along with pieces of wood boards, were all over the walkway to the front door. What was left of the door was hanging on the hinges. I walked a little closer, and it sounded like books and shelves were being knocked over. The shattered glass crunched under my shoes while I cautiously walked in the entrance. The library was a mess. Books and paper were scattered everywhere, and the floor was uneven and cracked. I went in a little further and saw the roots moving around. The ground started shaking, and the roots slid out far enough to reach the walls. Dust was falling down from the ceiling, and cracks appeared in the walls. I ran back outside and shouted, "Let's get out of here! The roots are going to knock the building down!" We all ran over to the sidewalk by the road and looked back to see some of the walls start bursting outward. We hurried down the path towards the elementary school. "That was a huge one," I said. "It was like it was trying to climb out of the ground." "I wonder what's at the centre of them where the roots or tentacles are spreading from," said Jessica. "I hope they aren't able to move." That was a scary thought, about something that was scary enough, just being stationary. I think we only had about a mile to go. The sun was getting pretty low on the horizon, so we would definitely be cutting it close. There were a few houses we passed along the road in the same state as every other one we'd seen, with the doors and garages all open. Then, after passing an empty field, we came upon a gas station. "We should get some supplies from here," Katie said. "I could use more water and food." The door to the gas station was closed. Jessica opened it up and looked inside. "It looks safe in here," she said, and held the door open for the rest of us to enter. Some of the shelves were bare, but there was still a good amount of food and supplies to choose from. I grabbed a couple packs of mini donuts as a special treat for Ali and I, along with some snacks. The fridges were pretty stocked still, so I was able to get more water and some milk. I had a lot of room in the equipment bag I was carrying, but it was taking its toll on my shoulder during our long walk. When everyone else was through getting the things they wanted, we went back outside. 2 cars went speeding by in the direction we were headed as we got out there. The second one seemed really close to the first. "Must be more survivors," Mrs. Wilson said. "I hope so," I said. "But remember the cars blocking one of our exits? And there was a police officer that got in his car and drove away after he changed." We continued along the sidewalk past another street and down a big slope. A loud crash echoed through the street. It must have come from over the next hill, as we couldn't see anything from where we were. Jessica and Trish picked up the pace, and the rest of us tried to keep up. At the top of the hill, we could see the 2 cars that had sped past us. The first car was smashed into a ditch just off the road, and the other car crunched into the driver's side door. The first car was moving from side to side and then began being pulled into the ditch. A man and a woman started screaming and the passenger door flew open. They stumbled out frantically and began climbing out of the ditch. Their screams suddenly stopped as they immediately seemed to relax. Another woman climbed out of the second car and limped slowly over to them. We were about 50 yards from them, but in clear view. All three of them looked over to us and tried to run towards us. Luckily, they'd all been injured in the car crash, so they weren't moving very fast. Trish raised her rifle and took aim.
"Hold on,"
Mark said.
"We shouldn't draw attention to ourselves out in the open like this. Maybe we can lose them since they're moving so slow."
"I think we can cut through the field across the street and stay behind the houses and everything else in the way," said Jessica.
"Good plan. Let's keep going,"
Mark said, and we all ran across the street. The changed people were limping pretty badly, so they didn't look to pose much danger. We went for a while at a pretty good pace, and after going past a few houses, they were out of view. We slowed down a bit to save some energy and to be more careful on the uneven terrain. A twisted ankle would not be good. There was a wide swamp ahead of us that we would have to either cross somehow or go way around it. We all spread out and walked through the tall grass and cattails, looking for a good place to cross. I looked behind us, and the three changed people were in view again, but still pretty far back. "Over here," said Mrs. Wilson. "This looks mostly dry." We all headed over to check it out. Suddenly, she seemed to trip, and then screamed and fell onto the ground. "Mrs. Wilson, are you okay?" shouted Jessica as she ran over to check on her. There was a rustling in the grass and weeds near her, and a group of woodchucks were crawling on her and biting her as she screamed and tried to knock them off. I ran there too and kicked one off of her before hitting it with a bat. Jessica picked up a stick and tried to pry another one off. The others came by and tried to help too, except for Stacy, who stayed back at a distance with the kids. Together, we were able to get them off her and kill them. Katie helped Mrs. Wilson up. There was blood dribbling down her legs, and she was crying. Mark pulled me aside and whispered,
"We don't have much time before she changes, so we have to make a decision. She knows where we are headed. Do you think that knowledge will stay with her when she changes?"
I took a deep breath and paused for a moment. I didn't want to give the answer that I knew I had to give. "I don't think we can take that chance," I whispered back. He went over to Stacy and leaned in to tell her. She shook her head no and started crying. I motioned for Jessica to come over. "I don't think we can let her go," I said. "What if she remembers where we're going when she changes?" I watched Katie help Mrs. Wilson sit down in a dry area. Then I looked back again, and the changed people were getting closer. "And we don't have much time to figure this out," I said. Jessica hesitated to answer, but finally said, "I think you're right. But what do we do?" Mark had come back over.
"I'll take her into one of those houses to bandage her up and wait until she changes."
"Are you sure?" I asked.
"I don't think there is much of a choice," he said. "And I've already had to do this before to someone I knew. I'll catch up to you."
He walked over to Mrs. Wilson and said something to her that I couldn't hear. She nodded her head, and he helped her walk across the swamp and towards a house by the road. "Where are they going, Dad?" Ali asked. "Mark is going to try to bandage her wounds," I said. "Will she be okay?" "I don't know, Ali. She got hurt pretty bad," I said. Then I turned to the others. "We need to move," I said. The changed people were only about 50 feet from us. I grabbed Ali's hand and we ran across the path that Mrs. Wilson had found for us. Everyone else followed. I led us to the house 2 away from where Mark was going. We all went in the back and then out through the garage. "If we keep going, we should be able to lose them. Mark will catch up with us soon," I said. We hurried down the street and to the last curve before the elementary school would come into view. I looked behind us and didn't see anyone coming. We went around the bend, and I could just barely see the elementary school a few 100 yards away on our right. We all stopped just before the large orange and yellow barrels, signalling the construction that may never continue. One side of the road was dug up, and roots were coming out of the ground for a good 50 feet or so down the road. They were stretched out to our left, as far as I could see, going out into the trees. To the right, they stretched out across the road and looked to be going all the way to the house that was set back from the road. I quickly looked around to check if everyone had their face masks on. Anna's had fallen just below her nose, so I went over and quickly adjusted it. "We have to find a way around this," said Jessica. "This one is huge. It had to have been here for a long time. I wonder how far these things stretch." It looked like they just kept going in each direction, as far as the eye could see. "Someone's coming," said Katie. I looked back to see Mark coming around the corner, his head hanging low. We all turned cautiously towards him. He held up his hands and said, "It's okay. I'm still me." Although I had only known him for a short time, I could tell that the last few days had taken its toll on him. Stacy ran over and gave him a hug. They stayed like that for a moment, and then they walked over to the rest of us. Mark handed me the handgun. That must have been Mrs. Wilson's. "What do you think we should do? These things seem to go on forever," Katie said. Mark looked over at the elementary school. "Has anyone checked in with the school recently?" he asked. The sky was turning pink, purple and orange as the sun continued its descent to the horizon. I pulled out my walkie-talkie and called out, "Sarah, are you there?" There was a quicker response this time. "Yes, we're still here. Where are you?" "We are inside of the school, but we've run into a problem. The routes I was telling you about have taken over this road and look to extend for quite a long way," I said. "From which direction are you coming?" she asked. "We're heading in from the south towards the back of the school," I said. "If you get a hold of anyone else, tell them to go a different way." "There was a man and woman that were headed here from your direction. They said they were able to find a car. I'm surprised they aren't here yet," she said. "There was a car crash on our way and they didn't make it. They were changed and were coming after us, but I think we lost them," I said. There was a long pause. Then she responded, "I'll make sure to warn anyone that we get on the radio. Let me see if I can get a group to go help you." Jessica tapped my shoulder. "I don't think we should wait. It's getting dark and who knows how long it will take them. Why don't we head towards the house and see how far those things go?" "At least it is kind of in the direction of the school," Stacy said. I held down the button to respond. "There is a house over here that the routes stretch out to. We're going to see how far they go and if there is a way through. We'll be headed parallel to the back of the school and we'll hopefully find a way across." "Good luck. I'll let you know when help is on the way," she said. We walked over towards the house, keeping a good distance away from the roots. They were completely covering the front yard and had broken into the house. As we went behind the house, we saw the roots continuing through the back of the house and then into the ground. We kept walking until we were about 50 feet from the house and the playground at the school came into view. Anna broke away from Stacy and started running across the grass. "Wait, Anna!" Stacy shouted as she ran after her. Little kids can be so quick sometimes. One minute they're standing next to you, and the next they're running down the driveway towards the street or in the kitchen throwing things out of a cabinet. You try so hard to protect and watch over them, but sometimes it all comes down to luck. The ground started sinking down as Anna ran across it. Stacy was a couple steps behind and tripped when she tried to scoop her up. They both fell to the ground, causing it to sink further. Mark was almost to them when Stacy let out a scream. A root covered in sharp thorns came uncovered from the sinking dirt and stuck into her body. Anna stopped from the scream and turned around. The ground crumbled away and she disappeared into the new hole. Stacy tried to turn and reach for her, but the thorns held her in place. Her clothes were covered in blood from the wounds and she was trying to say something, but no words came out. Her head turned to the side and her movement ceased. Mark dropped to his knees before Stacy and put his hands on her leg. No one said anything for a long time, and there wasn't a dry eye among us. I held onto Ali tightly as she sobbed in my arms. Mark looked back at us. "Go on without me. I just need a little time. I'll catch up to you." I saw the look on his face many times before in the mirror after my wife died. Surprise, despair, loss. There was nothing that could be said. Nothing that could be done to make this better. I walked up to him and put my hand on his shoulder. "I'm so sorry," I said. "We really need you. Please catch up with us soon." He nodded his head, but didn't say anything. I know the battle he was fighting, and I was very afraid that he was going to lose. We all went on our way after moving further back from where we thought the roots would be. I called out to Sarah to let her know what happened and to warn anyone that would be coming. "They've already left," she said. "I'll try to catch them." The sound of an engine running brought our attention to the hill going down from the playground. A maintenance truck with the rescue group was lumbering down the hill as it made its way towards us. The ground levelled off at the bottom of the hill. It was still a good distance away from us. We were all yelling to stop, but the truck continued. It drove across the bumpy grass until the ground broke away underneath the front wheels, tipping it forward. The doors flew open and 2 men and a woman tried climbing out, but the truck had sunk down too far. A cloud of dust and dirt went into the air. I did a quick mask check and pulled out the face shields we had grabbed earlier. Ali helped me hand them out, and we all put them on. The rescue group tried jumping out of the vehicle, but there was nowhere to go. They screamed as they fell into the sharp thorns of the roots. I looked back at Mark. He didn't appear to be watching the events unfolding in front of us. The screaming stopped abruptly, and the woman and one of the men climbed back into the grass. They then began running towards the school. I shouted into the walkie-talkie, "Sarah, the people you sent have been changed. They're coming for you." "What? No, that can't be," Sarah frantically replied. "They're moving fast, but we'll try to stop them," I said, as Jessica and Trish took aim with their guns. But then a loud gunshot went off, back to the left of us. I looked over in time to see Mark's body fall to the ground. I blocked Ali's view of him. Jessica and Trish had been distracted by the gunshot. "You have to shoot them," I shouted, snapping their attention back to the 2 people headed towards the school. A couple shots were fired, but the targets were missed. They were now halfway up the hill and would be at the school in no time. Jessica took another shot and missed again. Trish took her time aiming and fired another shot, hitting the man in the back and sending him tumbling down the hill. The woman made her way to the top of the hill, and Trish missed with her next shot. "Sarah, the woman is almost there. You have to stop her," I said into the walkie-talkie. Trish's next shot missed. "We're drawing so much attention to ourselves," said Katie through tears. "We have to go." Our group seemed so small now, with just 5 of us running through the grass. This led us into a few trees and a field of overgrown weeds. The colours in the sky were fading away, while the sky turned darker. "How are we going to know if it's safe to get across?" Katie asked. "We'll have to test the ground before we try, but I think we need to keep going first. From where the truck crashed, it was at least 50 feet away from us. We don't know how far they go this way." We kept running until we reached a point where there were trees going across towards the school. We stopped to catch our breath. "It should be safe here," I said. "I'm sure it would be noticeable if the roots reached out this far." We went for a little bit further to be safe and started heading across through the trees and towards the school. Dogs were barking and coyotes were howling in the distance. I'm sure this area would be crawling with the animals and changed people at any moment. Once we got through the trees, it was a wide open path to the school. There was no time to be cautious, so we just had to hope that there wouldn't be any more traps with the roots. I grabbed the walkie-talkie again and called for Sarah. "We've made it across and we'll be coming up by the gym. Can those back doors be open for us?" "We'll have them open for you," a new voice said. Jessica, Katie and Trish were in front, while I kept pace with Ali a little ways back. The doors opened up, and the 3 of them ran inside. When Ali and I made it in, the doors slammed shut. I grabbed onto Ali and hugged her tight as the tears flowed from my eyes. The others hugged each other and broke down crying too. We lost so much on the way. It felt like we made the wrong decision to come here, and I knew the guilt was going to weigh on us all. This moment was needed for us to let all the feelings go that we tried to hold back along our journey. We had so much hope running into the new survivors, but then it was devastating loss after devastating loss. I know I will never get over that we weren't able to protect the poor child. Everything was taken from Mark, and I know he felt like he had no choice but to do what he did. But I wish he was here. I still had Ali to keep me going, and that was all I needed to work through this. I was going to go through all these emotions and then quickly get back to the task at hand, protecting Ali and helping the others that made it to the school. The walls of the school felt safe for the time being, but we didn't know what was gathering outside or how long that feeling of safety would last.